Hey everyone, Egman here with another video, and today we have a top 32 breakdown for the Top Cut Events online treasure cup that happened this past weekend. It had over 900 players and 10 rounds of Swiss into this top 32. And a couple things before we get started. First, if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. It does help a lot, and we're going to continue to make more One Piece content as we go on with it. And then also, if you guys want any of the deck lists for this event or many others, you can check out my website, Egman Events, which is linked in the description. But for this event in particular, again, we had 934 players. November 16th by Top Cut, 10 rounds of Swiss best of one into this top 32 breakdown. And then also, if in case you missed it, I did get a top 8 finish myself with the Marco. So I made a video on that. You guys can check that out as well. But I did play in this event. I usually play in like one event every 6 months or so. And this one was super fun, and I do appreciate it. And like half the opponents that I played were on, made it into the top 32, which is exciting. So I played against Fee, I played against Grayson, I also played against Rex, who got, I believe, 20th place right here. So honestly, super great games. I chronicalized my entire run. You can watch it for free right now, which is linked in the description. And I also have a slightly better breakdown of my own deck, but I was also surprised to see that I was not the only Marco to top on this weekend. We had Aaron with their build, which is drastically different from mine, so I'm excited to go over that when we get to it as well. But of the top 32, we did get 10 Star Deck 13 Luffy's, with one of them winning with Colin. We had 7 OP07 Lucci's, 7 copies of Blue Doflamingo, 3 Bonnies, 2 Marcos, 1 Nami, 1 Enel, and 1 Katakuri as well. And we do have the leader breakdown as well. Again, I've been saying that 75% of the room is generally of the 5 leaders that I think are the best 5 in the game right now, of Lucci, Dofi, BY, Bonney, as well as Enel. Purple Luffy squeaking in there as like the 6th most popular, even though I don't think he's as strong as these other 5 quite as much. We do see Smoker, Nami, and Marco as well getting a little bit more of that. And I do know that 75% of this top cut was specifically Dofi, BY, and Lucci as well, which is a little bit strong. But if you look at like the percentage of people, what they were playing, it was, Dofi and Rob Lucci kind of match up together. They're just a little bit lower than 50% of the top cut, but it's the BY Luffy that really excelled from, how many people who were playing it up to the amount of people who were able to top with it, with 10 whole copies of it, even though it was the 3rd most popular leader by quite a bit, right? Like twice as many Dofis and twice as many Lucci's approximately from the BY Luffy, and it still just took over 25% of the top cut. So I don't know. I think BY is definitely a deck that's pretty impressive at this point. I think a lot of people have kind of figured out how it works. And even though like it's been, we had more formats and stuff, it's very kind of tricky for a lot of decks to play around this deck correctly, and it's been quite the rough deck for, I think, a lot of play matches and stuff like that. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with BY, but I do still think it's probably the strongest deck in this format right now, and definitely from its top cut to player percentage conversion, it's been usually positive almost every week. So. But we're going to go over the top placing list, starting off with our first place list, which is BY itself with his Colin's version of it. Now, there is a little bit of spice in this build if you haven't seen it already. I think most of these decks are generally pretty understood in what their ratios are, but Colin has a couple of different techs from there. So first one is Kingdom Come. If you haven't seen this, this is the card that immediately I saw when looking over the deck list itself, and I've never seen this in a BY list. So I think a lot of people would be caught off guard with this. It does KO, so it doesn't get around salvo protection, something like the mirror match. But if you are worried about something like, I don't know, like a 9 cost Zoro, also the fact that it just sets you down to 1. So if your opponent's trying to like stall out a lot of the times, this will just let you be able to get down to the number you need to get to, which is kind of nice in its own way. It's a little bit tricky to be able to do that and then also set up your life on the same turn. But even just for 6 Dawn and making it, if you're at like 2 or 3 life, you get rid of your opponent's big body, and then on the next turn you can use your effect. It seems pretty strong in that way, so it's a cool tech option, and I shouts to Colin for play. If it's someone else had been doing well with it, I had not seen it before. Colin's the first one I've seen use this card, and obviously get a lot of success with it. So other than that, we do have the ace package, so we have 3 of the 2 drop as well as 2 of the 5 drop. This is more of an option, but I think it's been slowly more common in the last couple weeks. And then we also have the one copy of the trend drop Kuzan, which doesn't really have synergy with the Raigo, but it does let you, like, if you need to play like really slow and defensively, you can build your own bodies and value with your own Moria, and then you can play Kuzan, and then you can like Raigo the next turn. I feel like there's a lot of different synergy, and like you can catch your opponent off guard, which I'm sure Colin had this weekend as well. So B-wise, we know what it looks like, we know how the decks works. It's still probably the best deck in the format. It is not easy to play per se, but it does have a lot of results. And another one with Colin here, congratulations to their first place with the BY Luffy. All right, next up we've got Lucci. So this is Fee's version of the list, and I did play against Fee in the round. I played him round 9, and he was my only loss for the weekend. But I've saw a lot of people on specifically the zombie Luffy, as the community has been calling it. A very interesting choice. I do know that it does help against the BY matchup because it does place into trash, not KO. So it does get around Sabo. If you're really good at like getting as many cards as you can in your trash, which your Lucci ability should be one of the better ones, you do get to be like a really big attack, and it's kind of difficult for your opponent to really interact with this in most cases for BY. So I think it's an interesting tech, but it does work in a lot of ways. Sometimes this can just get like randomly get rid of a 3 cost as well. So like, you play it on turn 5, you go to 7 Dawn, and then you can use like a cost reduction, and then with a 6 drop. Like you don't have to like bottom deck to use the effect. You just have to attack with it for it. So I could see that just be a strong tech in a lot of matchups, and a moderately like free way to interact with like Doflamingo if that deck was a little bit tricky, because they can interact with a 5-drop 6k, and then it can get rid of one of your opponent's 4 drops and attack as well. So that's very good. Other than that, we still see Brook. I think this card is super good with Lucci right now. We see 3 copies of Sabo for Rebecca. I've been seeing the Hinas pop up a little bit too. This just for some additional reduction when you need it. I can also see this like work in conjunction with Luffy a lot of the time, or even just with your Rebecca, being able to use the Rebecca to bring back the Hina. Not only do you have a 3-drop 5k body, but if you have like Luffy or Brook out the turn before, one of their attacks now converts into getting rid of something on your opponent's board. All of that stuff just works out very well in its own regard. So other than that, we do have a lot of cost reduction in our hand with the Soap Sheep, which works well with Lucci. You can get rid of 2 4-drops with our leader effect, our 4-drop 4-drop Lucci, and our Soap Sheep. So that's great against Dofi, and then 6 King Pistol just to get more cards into our trash. So even though like Lucci, we kind of know what it looks like, I think this is a pretty unique build. It has a couple different tech choices that I'm not used to as much, and I think he played it very well as well. So this is Fee's version of the build, and congratulations for their finish there. Next up, we've got our Marco build. So we've got myself with my own version, which is the Emporio version. I made a whole video on that. I think it's going to be better than what I'm going to explain now, but I really did enjoy this build and what I was able to do with it. We play Emporio because this card lets us get free value. If we're at 4 Dawn, so if we go second, we're able to use our leader effect to place one of these 2 drops to the top of our deck and then use it to play it out, and then we have that advantage. Also, Dawn was super strong. It was kind of like a last minute add for the deck, but it ended up working really well. Most of our 1-drops are just super good cards, and if we are worried, even though we're only running 12, there's scenarios where like if we're at 3 Dawn, we can use our leader effect, put one of these up there to the top if we're worried about missing with it, and then using Carlita Dawn. So Izo also was a great card because all of our there's a lot of good top end cards, like finding a Newgate, a Jozu, or an Atmos late game was really helpful. We have the Ace. We also have the Silvers, which this card was just fantastic for us. There's a lot of situations where we're able to play 7-drop Newgate and then follow up with the Silvers, and we usually just win the game in a lot of ways. We get just a lot of pressure, a lot of removal, and it's difficult for most decks that aren't Rob Lucci to interact with our board successfully. So I think that's like one of the MVPs for it. Sanji obviously came up a lot as well, and I really do like this deck. I don't have a lot of like changes with it. I think this core is really strong, and I do know that Emporio did go up in price by quite a bit from this weekend. So if you don't want to play that version or this version, because I know it is pretty specific, we also have Aaron's version of the build, which doesn't run the Emporio, and I would say this is a more standard list if I had to say so. So more of Whitebeard leaning in general with it. We do have the inclusion of like the Doflamingo, which is really great on 3. This does mean that if we are on the odd curve, we're able to set up our 5 top of cards to be able to play Sanji on 9 and use its effect successfully. So I do think that's also why we play 4 copies of it. Compared to mine, we have like Duval, which we can use on like 5 Dawn, but it's not super great a lot of the time, and I'd rather do a lot of other things. So we have that. We have our top end. We still have the Silvers. We got the Newgate. We have the 9-drop, which I don't feel like you need to run in the deck, but if you are playing like more of this Whitebeard Pirates leaning version, it makes sense from that way, even though we aren't playing Izo as a 1-drop for us. We do have the Jozu, the Thatch. We have the Charlotte Pudding 4-drop. We have the 5-cost Marco, which is really tempting to run, which is a really, really tempting card to run. The issue with it is that on 5, it does, like, you have to play this on your even curve if you're going 6. And then like, if you're going odd curve, like, you really can't play this card, unfortunately, because you play it for 5. There's not usually a lot of 3Ks unless you're playing against specifically Dofi and they have Teach Out. Otherwise, this card doesn't feel like it does a lot. And then on 7 Dawn, you almost always want to play Newgate instead. So that was my interaction with it, but I still think it's a strong card if you're able to see it. We do have the Bad Manners. We got the Seaquake. We've got Sanji's Peel-Off, which is super strong, especially if you're able to hit it off your life. And then also the Raging Tiger. So since we are playing Marco and you have to trash an event from your hand to be able to use its effect, it does make sense to run more events in this version. So I do understand like why we're doing that too. But I think this version is also very good too. And I think that it comes down to it. But I'm just happy people are playing Marco. I'm hoping to see a little bit of an uptick in the next couple weeks, but I really am happy with my performance, with also Aaron's performance and just the deck in general right now. So here's 2 builds. I hope you guys at least enjoy one of them. Try it out and see what you guys think. But congratulations to Aaron for their finish there. Next up, we've got Bonney. So this is Krister's version of the build here. Was able to go X1 with, actually, was it X1? Yeah, able to go X1 with it. Yeah, only X1. I do want to shout out though, Russell did get a top 32 X2 with Bonney as well. So shout outs to him. I know he's been grinding really hard with Bonney in general, for pretty much since the release of Bonney as well. But for the build that was able to go X1, so again, this is Krister's version of it. We do have a good amount of new cards, and I think some cards that people were so used to playing kind of exit. So the biggest culprit to me is that we're not playing 4-drop Uruj. I think so many decks can remove it now. Lucci and Dofi being able to remove it as soon as it gets played means you're not really doing anything with that Dawn investment. So you much rather just use it for searches off your 1-drop Bonney or 1-drop Baby 5. I also think that yeah, you just have like better things to do on a lot of your curves. So we are playing the Carrot, which is really great into Dofi. We do have Cavendish, Basil at 3 copies. There's just sometimes where you just don't have as much time to play this card, and they just kind of stack up in hand without being able to get any use. So I understand why we're playing 6. We are going 4 copies of the Rosie with 3 copies of the Eustace Captain Kidd. Definitely great against Doflamingo. It means that if they're not playing Red Rock, you're in a really good position. Lucci can just remove Kidd pretty easily, but even if you do have Rosinante out, but I still think it's a great card, in that a lot of decks just have to respect this card, and if they don't, they're kind of in a bad spot, especially like Black Hill Luffy. Unless they're playing like Rygo or something like that, most decks just have to respect it. And then we do have the new Shanks from the starter deck, which is great. 9-drop 11k is super strong and hard to remove, so some decks have issues with that. Doflamingo, 4 copies of that. Hody Jones send the game, and then also the 0 cost. So I think Bonney's been understood for a while now. We've been kind of adjusting it to what this meta looks like, but I think it is a super viable deck. It does have an unfortunate matchup into Lucci a lot of the time, but other than that, most other decks I think in this format it has a really good shot for. So here's the build here, and congratulations to Christopher for their finish with Bonney. And then next up we've got Doflamingo. So even though we did have most, it was the second most popular list and almost tied for first, if you really want to say it. We had 200 people on it, but only one player was able to finish an X1 with it, which is Alex. So Alex was able to do it with this build right here. I do like a lot of people are playing a lot of different builds of Dofi. I ended up playing 4 this weekend, and most of them did have like new text or different ads. One of my favorite ads right now, I think the 10-drop Kaido is super strong against a lot of decks, especially like in the mirror match. It means like you get to draw 4. Most opposing Doflamingo decks just cannot remove this card unless they're also playing like a Red Rock, which I think is just a medium tech right now. We do see like most people are playing Teach. It's kind of between 2 and 4 copies, but I think almost everyone is on this card because it does get a lot of value. It is a little bit rough against Lucci because they can remove it for free, but against other matchups, I think you are able to get that effect off, which is really nice. We do know like the good warlords. Most people are off the 4-drop croc, not the 2K, but the 1 off the star deck, which I'm not too surprised. Like the +1 card advantage doesn't really matter that much. And then also just kind of the rest of the blue thing. So Josu's been moderately popular still, I think. Being able to just kind of get some tempo, especially off your 1-drops. It means you can put your buggies or Peronas or Sengokus back into your hand, which is great. We're playing 2 copies of Gravity Blade, which is mildly popular. Some people play no events, some people play a good amount. I like Red Rock a little bit more personally, but I think Raging Tiger is in a good spot. And then our single copy of Femur to just the fact that this card exists means like your opponent cannot go to 0. Even if you're not playing the card, they always have to be afraid and cognizant of it. So, but this is the build from Alex. I think Doflamingo's in still a really good spot. I think people are finding out that it's not as easy as it could be of a deck. That there's a big plateau between a great and a very good Doflamingo player, and there's a lot of sequencing that can be a little bit tricky, especially over 10 rounds of Swiss too. But congratulations to Alex for the 9-1 finish and their top with Doflamingo. All right, next up we've got Ethan's version of Nami, and I'm still surprised at how persistent Nami is into this format. I do know that it does have really good matchups into BY and also into Lucci, which are still pretty present. You do have to dodge the Dofis, which again, they're like, you always have like a 1 in 4 chance to roll into a Doflamingo, which generally is such a losing matchup for you for so many reasons. But Nami still is able to find a way. They're able to dodge them and get there, which I think is quite the accomplishment. So this is Ethan's version, and obviously the deck I don't think has changed too much in the last couple weeks. Nothing from the star decks at least, but being able to I think more people are playing a little bit lower to the ground, being able to use like just our more proactive draws and keeping as much Dawn open as possible, because Doflamingo being able to play out as many 4-drops as they can, as well as being able to like bottom deck cards or putting you if you get too greedy with your hand size. There's just a lot that those decks can kind of do, which is rough for Nami. But it seems like it's just a deck that's going to be around seemingly forever in this game. And that's not necessarily a bad thing either, but that's just kind of how it is. So this is Ethan's build. I don't have much to say about it, but congratulations to them on their top finish with Nami. The next up, we've got Enel. So this is Matthew's version of it. And Enel's been kind of more present. It's kind of started off, I think, at the start of OP08.5, really hot, and then it's kind of been receding a bit in the last couple weeks. So we only got 1 into the top 32 this week. And with Matthew's version, and it's kind of known what this deck looks like. I think that we've been using more copies of Shirahoshi because not as many decks can interact with this as easily, especially since like when Red Purple Law left the meta, this card immediately got way more value since that was just an easy deck that could interact with this card. But now that you're able to like really only like blue can bounce it back into your hand, or like bottom deck it, but for like 7 from Gravity Blade. So generally it's pretty safe, or a safe investment for you to be able to be kind of defensive with it. So other than that, we just have our big top end of 4 copies of Katakuri, Yamato, and Ace. We have 3 copies of the Rationale, which because some matchups you do have to kind of pressure them down early, so they have to be really cognizant of your items. And I think like Enel has a pretty rough matchup into Lucci a lot of the time, because they generally can remove your big bodies as well as be able to establish their own body. Like Jack is such a terrifying card, because outside of Rygo you have no way to really reliably remove it, right? Like you can play 10 cost Ace and you can rush into it, but then like a 2k 1k can get out of it. If you have like an established board and then you can just like Jack, Ice Age, leader minus, you get a lot of value in a lot of ways. So I think Enel just kind of suffers from that. You're evenish into BY, that matchup can be in your favor. And then also like Bonney's like a weird one for it in my opinion, but I think the deck's in a weird spot. You definitely do have like a good way to beat Dofi, because you get rid of 4 costs very easily, and it's hard for them to get like 3 solid attacks without you just being able to heal and use like 10 cost Ace, Enel, or just a bunch of other tools to really out resource them, which is really strong. So we'll see how Enel ends up doing for the last little bit of this meta, but I think it's still going to be around. But maybe like an in-between of like where I first thought about it and where I am now, just like a solid top 5 deck, but not much more outside of that. So, but this is Matthew's version. Congratulations for their finish with Enel. And then wrap it up, we do have Christopher's version of Katakuri. This deck is terrifying in my opinion, because I play Marco, and that matchup's like 80-20 in their favor. So luckily, I think we had like less than 20 Katakuris. Yeah, not a lot of Katakuris. So big shouts to Christopher for making it. One of like 20 or less people were on Katakuri. So being able to be that one to get in the top 32 is quite the accomplishment. We did get a whole starter deck, and I will say that Chris is using more copies of cards from that deck than most. We were playing 2 copies of the Charlotte Lindland from the star deck. It's the 6 cost where you either have your opponent trash 2 cards from their hand, or trash 1 card from the top of your opponent's life cards. So it's kind of like a better version of 7 cost Linland in my opinion. Obviously a 7-drop 8k is better on board, and like the mid, like when you play it on 7, it's both options are great. But like later, like in the middle of the game, I think this Linland gets a little bit better. Your opponent kind of has to choose from 2 bad options most of the time. Most cards in their hand, I think, are pretty live by the end of the game. And it's difficult to choose 2 to get rid of, and that extra burn damage helps a lot too. So obviously 10-drop Linland still prevents a lot of 4 life leaders from existing peacefully. And it just has like a lot of good removal. We do have the Nami from OP08 as well, being able to use this to get removal and also have like a pretty good trigger effect out of life. And then we also have like the Brule, which is just like a okay 2k, right? It's searchable. The effect sometimes shows up, but it's just all right. And then also the Blaze Slice, being able to use this to get around Rebecca blockers and use their effect. And also just like the defense option sometimes shows up, specifically against like a blue Doflamingo character. You're able to rest one of their 4 or less, which they love playing 4 costs in that deck. So in general, I think Katakuri is fine. It's probably top 10 leaders in this game, but it definitely doesn't break into top 5. And I think this is quite the accomplishment and run for Christopher to be able to get an X2 finish with this leader too. So that's going to be the list for Christopher, and that's going to be it for this Top Cut as well. Again, thank you to Top Cut Events for running this one, and also just for everything. I really did enjoy playing in this event, and I was just really glad that it all worked out. And shouts to all my opponents for all their fantastic finishes. Like again, specifically like Fee and Grayson being able to get top 4, and then also Rex, who I remember our round 10 match was quite close, and I still look back on like my last turn. I was able to like narrowly win, but it wasn't pretty. It was definitely 8 hours of playing Logic, which was kind of scary at times. So also shouts to Russell being able to get top 32 again with Bonney. Very strong finish for him there, and the rest of my opponents as well. It was just a really great event. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all next time.